We do have a quorum. We're waiting on Susan and Rob, but we might as well get going. Eric, we're doing roll call. Here. Kevin?
Present.
Chris?
Here.
Clark? Oh, wait, here's somebody coming up.
Yep.
That sounds like Susan.
So you can
Susan?
identify that by the steps?
Yeah.
Hate it.
That's really
Susan.
good.
Are you present?
I'm present.
All right,
Yes.
good job. All right, Aaron, thanks for sending out the minutes. I don't know if everyone had a chance to review them. I had one slight correction on your 0.7 and 8 of last month's minutes. Both said old business, I think.
Yep.
So we just, number 8 is new business.
Got it.
I know. But do I have a motion to approve the minutes from last month?
I move that we choose to approve the minutes.
I will second. All in favor? Aye. Both? All right. This is the time where we state our commission goals for the coming year. Number 1, we use safety as our guiding principle and propose recommendations that are unbiased, transparent, and administered fairly. 2, we are a valuable partner to the SS4A task force. Number 3, we continue educational programs to introduce complete streets concepts to residents, employers, and city employees. 4, we are working towards developing the Webster Groves crosswalks guidelines to make our streets safer for pedestrians. We assist the city with prioritizing improvements along with design and budgeting process. And 5, we are continuing to work on improving and clarifying, publicizing our communication process between citizens and the Traffic Advisory Commission. And this is the time where we invite citizens, if they are here, if they'd like to bring something to our attention. We like to make this 3 minutes, and it's not usually a dialogue, although we're a little more informal, and sometimes we get into that, but typically it's we want to listen to you. And it's not really that, it's sort of your chance. So if you state your name and your address.
Hunter Delph. I live at 545 West Kirkham Avenue. I've been in here before. I came in about getting a crosswalk put in on the way to Larson Park at Denver on Kirkham, right in front of my house. And you all did really quickly, which was great. But we talked about then possibly having it where you could do push button flashing lights. And I wanted to make sure that was still something that was being looked into, possibly put on the agenda. Living right where I do, my wife, we have a little girl that's 20 months and we have another one on the way, and we cross all the time. And I pretty regularly, I basically have to walk into the street and like stare down the traffic to get them to actually stop, which is not a very safe feeling. And especially as my daughter gets older, it's
Just like, do you find, I mean, is it pretty much equal coming from both directions, or do you find you have more issues coming from one end?
both ways. Like, the bend is far enough down that they can see us. But it's just, the sad truth seems to be is that people in the US don't really understand crosswalks. They don't understand.
Or some
pedestrians.
locations of the US.
Yeah.
They really do.
Some places are much better. St. Louis.
talking about Webster Groves.
We lived downtown for a long time and they don't either. But they don't. I wish they did. I'd say if you're lucky, it's like 40% of people stop. And I've seen cases where I've stopped for someone having a dog cross and then 2 cars drive by in front of them while I'm stopped. It stinks. There's a lot of people that do strollers across right there at Denver. And a lot of people that walk their dogs around. And I think people would respect the brightly flashing lights a lot more. When I was in last time, I remember someone had talked about how more signage doesn't help, which I actually agree with. I don't think putting more warnings farther away would necessarily help, because more signage kind of just leads to people blurring it out, ignoring it. But those lights they put on, the big flashing LEDs, I really think it'd help. It'd make me feel a lot safer crossing the street, safer for all the families in the area too. And I know it's expensive, but I just want to make sure it's being
Yeah, we appreciate it.
And I did want to ask, I know Webster got Safe Streets grant, which this could also fall into. Isn't there another committee for that? But I don't know what time they meet at. I looked online.
I happen to be here at this meeting and I am one of the staff members for Safe Streets.
Okay,
There is a task force and those meetings are on pause for the summer
okay.
and we'll be resuming again this fall on a
Okay.
bi-monthly basis. So too soon to say if we're resuming in August or September, but it's only because we're in the middle of an environmental review right now, which is a federal requirement, and we can't move on to the next phase until this review is finished. So that should be wrapped up in.
It's number 5 on our agenda. We're gonna cover.
Yeah.
Do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you all could do it, it'd be great. If you think the Safe Streets program would maybe be better, I could end up.
They,
to that
just
later.
to clarify, they had some real identified demonstration projects before going into the implementation, so they're not really taking on those kinds of
Okay,
individual projects.
okay.
But if you heard, one of our goals for this year is really developing a better or more inclusive crosswalk policy to address
Yes.
these kinds of things. So we hear you. I think we're all advocates of it, and
I can't believe how busy and how loved Larson Park is. There's parties there all the time at that. I didn't know when I moved it was gonna be so popular, but it's great, honestly. I just would like the street to
Yep.
feel a little bit safer at the entrance.
thank
there.
you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And again,
Do you wanna say anything?
you do not have to stick around.
Yeah, I remember last time. I did check out the minutes though.
Yeah, good.
And check, talk about it, but.
All right, well, thanks for coming. All right, so this is Sean.
Okay, yeah.
This is time for you to give us an update, I guess, on the SS4A.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for having me. I did watch your last meeting and there seemed to be a little bit of confusion about where we are in the process. And so my colleague, Dr. Tennille Rose Martin, she is the grant manager and I serve in a public affairs capacity for the project. But she's on vacation this week, so she's not here. But we are your two dedicated staff members, and we are also hiring for a community liaison right now, so that job is posted. But after watching your meeting, we wrote up a little FAQ document that I think Chief Weimer sent out to you all. But from watching your last meeting, I think the bulk of the confusion was probably in that a couple months ago, we announced that we were going to pursue an implementation grant. And why don't I just pause right there for a second and start at the very beginning. Under the Safe Streets for All grant program, there are two different types of grants. There's a planning and demonstration grant, and then there is an implementation grant. The city of Webster Groves received a planning and demonstration grant. The purpose of the planning and demonstration grant is to create a comprehensive safety action plan. And as part of that, most awardees are also given funding to implement demonstration projects. And those are temporary. They are meant to pilot different kinds of technology and to measure their efficacy in the community. And then to be able to determine if they are appropriate to put into your comprehensive safety action plan. So the city received the planning and demonstration grant, and included in that are the demonstration projects that we will be installing this fall. Earlier this spring, we announced that because of just some uncertainty with the availability of federal funding, we were going to pursue the next phase of funding, which is the implementation grant, early, ahead of schedule. The conventional schedule, what we had originally outlined to do is to fulfill our planning and demonstration grant, develop our comprehensive safety action plan, and then with that plan in place, go back in future years to apply for that implementation grant. You can't apply for the implementation grant without a safety action plan. However, we learned about, I don't want to say a loophole, but that as long as you have a safety action plan, you can apply. Well, the city of Webster Groves is within the Metropolitan Planning Organization, East West Gateway, within their preview, and they already have a comprehensive safety action plan. So we announced a couple months ago, we were going to go for it in an effort, just a proactive effort to try and secure funding and make sure that the things that our community and our residents are concerned about are addressed. Unfortunately, we have learned that the projects that we had identified for that plan are not, our proposal would not be very competitive, and we were basically told that it was more than likely we would not be receiving funding. So because there's an extraordinarily large amount of time and resources that go into applying for a federal grant, and the time frame to do that was a much shorter window this year. So we are no longer trying to pursue that implementation grant. So anything you heard about using the East-West Gateway plan, you can erase from your memory, because we are going back to the original plan. We are pursuing our planning and demonstration grant. We are already in the process of doing that, and I can speak more on that. And once that is complete and we have our safety action plan developed, then we will go back, as long as the funding in the program is still valid and they release the NOFO, but then we'll go back and apply for the next phase, which is the implementation funding. So I think a lot of the confusion we can just kind of move past, because it was related to applying for that implementation grant early, which we are no longer doing.
Okay, what actually would be in a comprehensive safety action plan? So for instance, crosswalks is one of our passions and something we're moving towards, developing a crosswalk policy. We have sidewalk policy. We're looking at, would that be doing what you're doing, or are we doing things that are maybe not, that we shouldn't be spending time on because it's going to be part of your plan?
I think, and so we do have consultants to be creating our safety action plan, and that process is heavily reliant upon community engagement. Those events will not happen until, they won't even start until August at the earliest, maybe September, and those consultants will come in town. And so I think it'd be a really valuable opportunity for us to, and for our consultants and you all to meet, and we can learn about your pedestrian crosswalk plan. Do you already have it in place, or you're working on that? Yeah.
Work in progress.
Okay. That would be something that would be addressed in a safety action plan. There will be a public open house and a few focus groups to kind of flush out all of these things.
So what does it sort of the end thing look like? I mean, what components is in it?
The various demonstration projects will be in there. And so the ones that we are piloting.
And I sent those out to everybody.
You did?
Yeah,
Okay. So speed humps.
But I mean, but is this comprehensive plan is just about those, or is it?
No, you're right. It is broader than just the demonstration projects. And at this point, I can't touch on all of the things that might go into it. We have done our first community survey to identify the concerns of the community. We are now working on the next survey, which will be to inform on our demonstration projects and assess the community's initial response and their knowledge of these kinds of technologies, and see what they think about them. And then after the demos, we'll go back and see what the community liked and do another survey so we can measure the pre and post attitudes. But you're right, Clark, that the safety action plan is broader than just the demonstration projects. But at this moment, I really can't tell you all of the other things that might go into it.
Have you seen another?
Yeah, actually, I was just gonna tell you, Kirkwood.
You guys, we have Kirkwoods. It's been sent to everyone.
Kirkwood's is called Vision Zero. And it is on their website. It's a little hard to find, but,
It was emailed out to. so
yeah, okay.
We could email them.
Yeah, and I can send you the link easily too. And I will share that the consultants that created Kirkwood's Vision Zero, it's the same organization that we're working with. Well, umbrella organization.
So part of the confusion on the TAC over this is probably my fault, so I'll take some blame on the liaison, and I may not have done a very good job of communicating. I attended some meetings remote and had some IT issues. But one of my questions was, at some point early on in January, in one of the January, February meetings, right after the new administration got in, there was some discussion over some aspects that had been planned to be in the, or that people thought were gonna be the implementation grant, weren't viewed favorably by the current admin. And are those things the reason why we think we're concerned about getting funding now?
We have the only grants that we have applied for is the planning and demonstration
Right.
grant. And that funding is distributed on a reimbursement process,
Yeah.
but we have had no indication that funding will be interrupted.
Okay, but so I thought the whole reason we
Think-
tried to do
Yes.
the other one was because of concern over being able to get the implementation.
Correct. There was a lot of turbulence this spring with federal grants. A lot of them were canceled, withdrawn. We were very concerned that we might be affected. But then, the Department of Transportation, which oversees this grant program, they released the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, for the 2025 round of Safe Streets for All. So we thought, oh, well, this is great news because it's just a promising sign that our grant won't be interrupted. They are continuing to give out funding for this program. So hopefully that's a great sign. And then we were thinking maybe just to be as proactive and, as possible and try and secure funding for the community, maybe we should apply now for the implementation funding since they have released the Notice of Funding Opportunity. I think what you might be thinking about is that the previous administration included in the program an equity requirement for your application.
Yeah, I think it was something along those lines. It was I don't even think, there's conversation of it, we're not even at that stage yet, but there was concern over that might be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, this is the only thing I can think of that has changed from the previous administration to the current. And in that applications previously had to include an equity component. And so moving forward, it looks like that might not be the case. However, our executed grant agreement is signed and executed, and that is what we follow. And that has not been disturbed in any way by the current administration.
What's the timetable for this current grant that we're doing?
It's 3 years.
3 years.
If I remember
That's the schedule.
correctly. Right.
That's just for the demonstration.
For this one.
And so you'll be going into those in the fall.
Yeah, so one of the requirements of this federal grant, most federal grants, is that you have to conduct, under the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, you have to conduct an environmental review to make sure any infrastructure projects that you receive federal funding for don't impact the environment negatively. So we are in the process of our environmental review. We cannot even move on to the next phase of the project, which is the demonstration phase. We can't even purchase the equipment for the demonstration projects until our environmental review is complete. So we are expecting that review. There's an agency that's working on that. That should be completed in September. And that's what's been communicated to us, is that it will be completed in September. Now, I think before that's completed, I think we will be able to send out that survey I told you about that we're working on that informs the community about our demonstration projects. Those demos were in our, grant application. Those are part of our executed grant agreement. So there's no changing those demonstration projects. So we can be informing the community about those. We just can't install them until this fall.
Okay.
So once the environmental review is done, then we can start looking to purchase the equipment. Not every demonstration project will be installed at the same time. It will likely be staggered, and Sanan, feel free to jump in whenever you want, but this fall is when you would probably see the first demonstration project. And sorry, I didn't pass this out earlier. This is hot off the press, but every month we've written a monthly update for the project, and it's on the Safe Streets, the Webster Grove Safe Streets website. For June, we wrote an executive memo, which kind of is just an overview.
This is the
Sorry.
one I emailed that to.
Oh, okay, so you've already seen this.
I got it today from the city manager.
Oh, well, beautiful.
I emailed it out.
Well, I tried to give you extra paper.
That's all right.
This is just a little
I printed in black and white, but.
It- of an overview of the timeline of events of what we've been working on so far. It also gives a little bit of a snapshot of that survey. And so the two big concerns, the results of our first community roadway safety assessment is that the community, their number one concern is speeding, aggressive, and distracted driving. And then their second highest concern is unsafe pedestrian crossings. And I'll dive in just a tad deeper. The third one was a lack of sidewalks. So we really see, we're kind of looking at this as we've got speeding, distracted driving as the big concern, and then pedestrian infrastructure. Now, and then I'm sure you guys might already know all of the demonstration projects. The Public Works Department, I mean, this is going back a couple of years ago, but the Public Works Department identified these demonstration projects based off of the priorities that were outlined in some of the boards and commissions work plans, and that included the Traffic Advisory Commission a couple of years ago, as well as the Sustainability Commission and the Police Community Engagement Board. Those projects are the speed humps, the adaptive signal timing, and the adaptive variable speed limit sign. So those three really address the speeding, aggressive, distracted driving concern. And then the next three, the multi-use path, the in-road warning lights, and the pedestrian hybrid beacon, those are more tailored to pedestrian infrastructure. And then there's also this firehouse signal, which is kind of an outlier to the demos, but we also received some funding to try a new firehouse signal out. So yes.
All right, this is very helpful. So thank you.
Okay. We do expect, so there will be, I think I already mentioned this, but public open house and focus group meetings this fall. The exact dates have not been determined yet. Yeah, just to keep working with flushing out.
I think it's just really important that we keep our dialogues together so we're not stepping on each other's toes and we're collaborating together to make sure we're not
I appreciate
double
it.
doing work. And then, so, really you and the comprehensive plan and TAC, I think really need to make sure we're just putting everything together.
Well, remember, at one time, we had said we kind of were gonna try and stay out of their lane, because you guys have a very coordinated public outreach effort, and we didn't want to muddy that up.
Right.
Yeah, and we also can't stray away from what's in our executed grant agreement.
Yep.
So we've got these 6 demonstration projects and then and creating the safety action plan. But we also don't want to be muddling your normal procedures and the function of this commission either. But I do appreciate, the opportunity and the interest to stay involved. And I think that the work you all do can be beneficial to the comprehensive safety action plan. And so when those consultants are in town and when we know when the dates of those engagement events are, I will make sure that you guys are aware, and maybe we can even set up something additional just for this commission. But yeah, I think that's helpful. The only other thing I wanted to note, that from watching the video of your last meeting is that I think a resident came in for public comment concerned about the stoplight on South Elm. And a message was given to that woman that the stoplight or maybe perhaps a stop sign was going to be a demonstration project within SS4A. There is no demonstration project related to a stoplight.
I think it was just itself, I think what I tried to communicate was that South Elm was on the demonstration project,
Yes.
but not anything specific.
And
So Sean, I spoke with the resident outside of this, so you don't have to
Oh,
clean
okay.
that up. I cleaned
Okay.
that up already.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah,
With
no,
this commission, obviously, but with her, I cleaned it up.
okay, good. Now, the traffic signals, yes, that is one of our demos is, adaptive variable signal timing. So, but I just wanted to clarify that there's no stop sign being piloted on South Elm.
There's a speed hump, right?
There,
Yeah.
Speed humps, the variables, speed limit signs, whatever
It
that.
has so many colors, it's hard to see all the
Yeah.
colors on here. That.
I
that
think the
stretch of
major
them.
concern about South Elm is just traffic calming.
And I thought the lady that came was talking about, it's not South Elm, is that called, I thought South Elm was south of 44.
No,
Okay, all of
South
that,
of Lockwood,
gotcha,
yeah.
okay.
You just gave me an idea, a
North
variable
and south don't match. He said,
adaptable, yeah. When you see a bad guy coming, you just blow it up.
well, good. I think we have a full agenda. Anything else for Sean? Really appreciate this. Do you have a mailing list of all the people that filled out survey? We have our event coming up and we're trying to figure out how to,
we don't have a mailing list.
I mean, a lot of people filled the surveys out. but
Yeah,
that was-
great response rate.
How many, what were your response?
Over like 567, I think it was.
I think that's more votes than Mayor Arnold got last time around. Okay, I'm just.
Probably true.
Right.
All right,
That's
have as many as I needed. How about that?
All right, excellent.
all right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. All right, our next, anything else? For John, thank you so much. And
Okay, and I'll
I think they,
food out of the.
yeah, I was gonna say, no need
Thank you
to,
very much.
because you watch us online anyway, you must get the popcorn going or something.
Yeah.
So I have one question.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned the Kirkwood Safety Action Plan.
Mhm.
And Eric, you had mentioned it was sent out and I saw when it said bumps and humps and it's a PowerPoint thing. But it doesn't look like other safety action plans that I've seen, one for Palo Alto, California, which is a little bit more specific about things, and Kirkwood was sort of like, here's what some traffic calming things are. But it
Maybe
wasn't
it's
my-
something wrong.
So I wondered if either you could help us find either the correct Kirkwood one, or just confirm it's the right one. Or
It's
some
called
other-
Vision Zero. I've seen it a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
the thing I got in the email didn't,
Oh, I thought I did, maybe
you sent something and it was like a plan, but not
Yeah.
very,
Because they have a link on their website, it's a PDF document, I'm opening it right now, it's not a PowerPoint.
does it say bumps and humps on the
Oh,
first
I'm
page?
loading up right now.
Can we let Sean go home? She's been here a
I
while.
will tell you, East West Gateway has another plan. You could search for East West Gateway.
That would be a model of what we would expect.
Safety action plan.
I can send it, I'll send it to you, it's not I think maybe I sent the wrong thing. It's a PDF.
Well, it was a link to a web page which downloaded a PDF, but it
Yes.
didn't look like an action plan, and it was pretty vague. And when I looked at Palo Alto, California's, it was pretty specific.
Okay,
And I mean, you sent out in good faith that you were saying an action plan, but
I think, well, okay.
Well, I appreciate that tip. I'm gonna go look at the Palo Alto plan and see, since looked like it was a good one. The Kirkwood Safety Action Plan is called Vision Zero. And we haven't seen a draft, like, we're not quite there in our process, so I can't tell you at this point how much it aligns with Vision Zero or,
part of that road diet is to determine data for the plan too, right? Like the demonstration projects. So, and it's a 3 year, so we're still in the middle of crafting, so. I don't know what it'll look like at the end yet.
yeah, I mean,
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you, Sean. All right, next on our agenda is our 3 weeks of 2-day event coming up. Eric or Rob or Eric, anybody wanna give us?
Flyer. It's been a big thing.
The last correspondence we had was Eric was going to put together the outline. We still haven't received the outline.
That's Eric.
yet.
With Bill.
Show that. So that's where it's at right now. The rooms are reserved, times are reserved. SS4 will be there.
Do we think we can pull this off in 3 weeks? Yes.
I don't see why not.
I mean, to get people there.
I think what we should probably do is we'll follow up with him again this week on the outline.
Mhm.
See when they expect to have it. I mean, the reality is they're gonna send us something and we're not gonna have a lot of time to modify.
Right.
So I think we send it out to everyone via email on the committee, do a quick round of comments, I think. What do you think?
As far as the presentation,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't see another way of doing it. This is gonna be distributed by our
Yeah.
public affairs officials to the various groups within the community to somewhat gauge attendance. I think that everybody kind of has an understanding of what complete streets are, and that's kind of what they're presenting on, so I can't see anything
No.
concerning that they would.
No.
I mean,
Yeah,
I view this is our first rodeo.
Yep.
We're gonna come out of it having learned a bunch and we're gonna use that for the next.
I agree with you. I
So-
agree. So I'm excited about it. I just wanna make sure people show up.
I would also say that, you know, if this is kind of a trial phase, and if this isn't the direction that we want to head for future, we can pivot.
Are you in the parade on the 4th? Can you go hand these out?
I will be at the parade on the 4th.
What about food? What do we say for food and beverages? Are we providing anything? I just feel like maybe that'll get people there.
We talked about that.
Yeah, threw a tantrum and you guys wanted to.
What, you did not think we should have food?
I'm just not a big.
I just think maybe it'll bring people. 6 PM and we're gonna wanna eat.
I would say I don't know where you would get the funding for the food.
I guess if I knew I'll donate some pizzas if I knew how many people were gonna.
Yeah.
Do you think we have any way to gauge how many people are actually gonna show up?
I don't see how.
Somewhat, I can ask her to do it like a invite, Facebook invite, see attendance, but it just kind of sort of depends.
You can
I
always
think-
say the first.
Yeah.
10 people there get pizza.
I think to try to pull off food would be difficult with the amount of time we have left.
People expect it.
Yeah, moving forward, we could try to loop that into the overall like budget of what we've got.
Send them to the snack bar at the pool.
Well, I mean, there's ways.
Yeah, and in terms of getting people there, remember, you all know people. You can. Do we have an electronic copy of this?
Yeah, I sent it.
Yeah, I just have not been good on my email today or the last.
Do you
few
send it
days.
today?
No, I sent it.
Does the city have a Facebook
Yes.
group? Okay, I'm not on Facebook.
So
Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah.
I think are the two that the city uses the most.
So is this getting?
So she's gonna send this out to our business commissions. They have a email list that they use, so that'll go out to those as well as Facebook and social media.
Should we create a mailing list of people interested in TAC activities? Is that a reasonable thing to do or not?
Is that like considered solicitation? Like,
So I assume also, Eric, that this will go out in the Friday page.
Yep.
Yeah.
what's the Western River Times?
That's, yeah, I don't think so.
A press release at best and then they.
Let's- Yeah, because this does coincide with the end of the month, one pager that we have.
Okay.
And if there's anything that can make me, to write a shorter budget column, I'm on board.
Do we know anyone at Webster Pepper Times that we could,
So you. want me to
Yes,
follow
I know
up
everybody.
with you about adding that to the Times?
you know them? Could you make a phone call and see if they'd be willing to?
Pretty much, it's almost
Let me
like
do
a
it,
press
because I've
release.
got here a
I think-
couple other things.
I think Laura's taking care of
I'm sorry.
Well, no, but here's a different thing. This is in our advertisement. If you all want coverage of this from the Webster Kirkwood Times, one of you also can put it on their community calendar. 'Cause that's easy. You just log on and put the events in there. In addition, if somebody, feels like they can call up, Jamie Moyers or whoever, Randy, and say, we're having this event, we think you might be interested in it. You guys call them. They hear from us all the time.
Right.
If one of you calls them, I think it's likely to be a better response.
The mayor mentioned the Friday page, which is a city thing that you can sign up for. It kind of gives you like a rundown of all the city events, and that's.
Where is that? Like, where does that exist?
It's on
I
our-
get
it's
it.
on our
So
website.
Email.
if you go to the city website, just search notify me. There's a whole slew of city newsletters that you can, yeah.
If-
And so what we probably should do is encourage people to, use that notify me to get on there, because events like this will show up in the Friday page.
I can share Jamie's contact with whoever wants to reach out to ask for that. If,
Or if you know somebody else,
Well, there are only so many staff there. I mean, they'll hand it to
Well-
the right person.
yeah. I mean, Jamie will probably, if it is, write the article, but if you know Randy instead, then call Randy. It's just whoever.
I mean, in a sense, isn't it give them a press release and they do what they do with it, because that's how they ingest things. And it's simply, here we are, we have this, here's the facts. Call us if you want more info.
So that's a traditional route, but the actual engagement with them is what might put it at the
Okay.
top of the pile.
I'll
That's the-
call.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll give it a try.
see if I can find a contact and send it to them.
Okay, thank you.
I could also see if they would put a letter, I could do it as chair of the Traffic Advisory Commission. That would be in the 27th, just inviting people. They've had a couple of letters the last 2 weeks about the roads.
The one about the
And
bikes.
maybe just say, hey, there's been some conversation, come learn about complete streets.
Yeah.
Do a very short letter. If we try to hit all of the parts of the paper, the community, who's gonna do the community
calendar.
calendar?
Susan, do you want to do that too? I mean, I'm not
Sure.
trying to put it on you, but
And then you can just try to get a hold of them with this flyer. This is our press release.
so suggestion down there, I think, was all of us put it on LinkedIn, all of us put it on
Yeah.
Facebook, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Whatever your
And
platform of
Eric, you
choice is.
did everyone see this from Eric? You did, you got it, email? Okay,
Is there already a web
sorry.
form of this, something on a web page somewhere?
I don't think it's been
Because
distributed yet.
if we want to put it on LinkedIn, the best way is that there's a link to something that looks like this, instead of us taking a picture of this and posting it on LinkedIn.
But they said he just emailed it. He
It's in a
emailed it.
PDF form too.
Yeah, but that's
So,
not as good.
He's
as
talking about a web page
a link.
that, yeah, not just the document itself.
Well, we'll use what we have. so. Or post it again once the link is, so.
I like Eric's attitude. Let's see what we do. Let's learn from it for the next one and maybe we
Let's
can
not
have
be
pizza
too
next
hard on
time.
ourselves.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, we good here? So, because we're not meeting again before this.
Yeah, I guess can follow up with Eric and see if he's gonna get us this outline of what they're gonna.
When we get it, yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think, I would just add that when we do get that outline, let's send it out. I think we should make a concerted effort we'll send it out to everyone on tag. We should not go crazy with a bunch of.
I don't think we need it.
changes. Okay,
I trust you guys to do that.
okay. Yeah, I just don't wanna overwhelm these guys.
No, I think if you feel happy with it,
Again, I mean, we evaluate it and see how it goes and if it's something we wanna consider and like you said.
all right.
Nick?
Crosswalk man.
Okay,
So I sent out, or when was it? Last week, a very, very first rough draft of my thinking on this. And I'm open to suggestions or where we go from here.
I made a few notes.
Okay,
Um,
did you choose to share those?
I will. Um. I wasn't quite sure that on the measurements,
Mhm.
like, who does that?
So the idea is that we would not have to take staff time gathering information. All this information could be provided by the person who's submitting. Now, the only thing that's a little unusual is this functional classification, but we can fill that in if we need to. That's easy.
Right. And then the one little, this is a little nitpicky, but the intersecting streets, all the crosswalks don't have intersecting streets.
Of
So,
course,
for instance,
yeah, good point.
you know, like the one on Kirkham or crossing major streets,
Out in the middle of nowhere, yeah. Well, okay, I mean, that's something we can address, we could,
intersection or location
or
or something
something
like
like
that.
that, right?
Is
We're always
this,
crossing one street, so street one can stay. Street two is optional.
is this, or did you get this from somewhere or did you make?
No,
most
I
of
made
this?
it up.
So like the quarter mile of an elementary or secondary school,
I figured that was a reasonable, so here's the idea. The idea is we can't get hard data on the number of cars that drive by. We can get no data on how many pedestrians walk by. So all these questions, the goal is to,
collecting data.
well, it's data that would lead you to believe this street is gonna be a very busy street. And the kids that are gonna be, the people crossing are gonna be children. Whereas this street has low, it's a neighborhood street, so there's not gonna be that many cars. And it's not necessarily children. I'm trying to determine which provide a higher risk of injury as opposed to a lower risk of injury.
You're getting into like a data analysis and we might not hit. I mean, I think people at the highest level, people argue about that
I'm sure,
at the top levels.
I'm sure.
So does the city have access to average daily traffic data for major arteries and roads?
Yeah, DOTs and counties. Yeah. But the pedestrian data is rarely available.
But the so like, because what part of, like, one of your questions here. In trying to, I think what you're trying to do is come up with objective measurements to be able to classify a crossing.
Yes.
And
Anything that would help us classify or differentiate between different crossings.
maybe we don't want to dive that deep, but one of those objective metrics would be average daily traffic.
Yes, if it's available.
Well, and I think
But-
it probably is, right?
We can, on the county and the DOT roads, we can get it from them. On our
So let
streets,
me make a suggestion then. Let's create a questionnaire or I don't know what you want to call it. An application form that is only filled out by the people who are interested in getting the crosswalk. And then on that form, there will be a couple of boxes for official data only. One of those pieces of data will be this functional classification. Another one will be,
And you want the people with that want the crosswalk to fill that data out?
not the official,
Okay.
but the rest of it.
Can we go back a minute? You started to say something on what was available on our streets.
we will have to measure it.
Okay,
With
so
the
it's not
camera.
readily available. Okay.
I thought like USG had all kinds of data like that.
For like county roads.
Well, pretty much for anything they can put a
So
satellite.
DOTs include the county, so they provide that platform for us, everything together under one database. But that wouldn't include ours because they don't measure normally ours.
So you'd have to put out one of the,
Yeah,
Okay.
we have boxes actually, that we don't have to use.
Pressure hose or whatever.
Right.
okay.
So Eric, the reason for this is there was a time a year or so ago when we had all these projects that we wanted to do and every one of them was dependent on traffic data. And the traffic people were just overwhelmed with that and we didn't go anywhere. So what I'm trying to do is to use the data that's readily available to make a cut and say, okay, based on what we know, these are not gonna make it.
So for instance, the guy that came in and made the comment about the crosswalk,
You know,
we would have,
we would be able to make a judgment from what we have that it's very unlikely that there's gonna be enough car volume on that street to justify doing anything. So we can respond to those people and give them an answer.
My guess though is you see crosswalk is more contextual than just data, average data.
Oh, I know
Because
that.
You'll see crosswalks in low ADT areas.
And yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm simply trying to make a quick judgment so that we spend our time on the few where it is justified, rather than spend a lot of time gathering data about stuff that's not gonna be justified. That's just, I may be wrong.
I
That's
think
just
you're
the
onto
strategy.
something, trying to attach some objective metrics to a given location to help us kind of, if we're gonna make a recommendation to the city, it isn't, that we wanna have some data on it.
Well, I do too. Again, though, if we, maybe there are three categories. So if the people that submit this, if it's clear that it's not gonna pass, we can respond to that one. If it's in question, then we ask for a daily traffic number.
Crosswalk requests come through your worksheet, right?
Boy.
different ways.
Different ways, yeah.
In other words, well, yeah,
I don't think it's on the fix the form. I think it's a separate request.
Like the Grant Court, that was a crosswalk request that we got.
Yeah.
Last week, that came to you via email probably, right?
Yes.
But I think that, what I was sort of envisioning in terms of the guidelines. That we come up with sort of, different levels of. The most expensive crosswalk that has the flashing LEDs or whatever, we know what that's gonna cost.
Yeah.
And then we sort of have criteria for what could get that. I mean, if you had funding.
Well,
And then
so my thinking on, I understand what you're saying, I don't mean to cut you off. But my thinking was that depending upon the volume of traffic.
Hold on,
the
you
number-
mean volume pedestrian, volume car,
Volume cars.
only car?
Well,
I
we
thought
have
your
no way to
document
get,
said-
there's no way to get the,
Your document talked about trying to get
Right.
it.
but, so my point is. From this data, we know that it's gonna be a 4 or 5 lane street with a light. Or it's gonna be a 2 lane street with a stop sign, or it's gonna be a neighborhood street. Which maybe doesn't even have a stop sign, maybe doesn't even have a sidewalk. So I think you wouldn't necessarily, how do I say this? If a crosswalk is going to be required, it's already clear whether it's gonna be flashing light or whether it's gonna be just a stop sign and signs, or whether there's gonna be nothing there. So I think we can gather that information from Public Works. What are the costs of these different options?
is there, so now do you know, like, how do cities, is there sort of a process of evaluating like standards
For which type? of crosswalk?
for different types of crosswalks? I mean, are those already, I don't want to reinvent the wheel if there's already.
In a sense, we're talking about an à la carte menu of 4-lane road costs this much, a 2-lane road costs this much,
Well,
and so on and so on.
but keep in mind, like our objective here is to take workload off the city, because right now, if somebody goes to USADON, say, I want to crosswalk. You gotta decide, hey, do I spend city resources on this? I thought what we were trying to do is streamline that a little bit.
We are.
So we kind of do some of the initial legwork. And then we go to Sanan, and the idea would be that we would add value in that chain, so.
And so hit the guidelines that can help them in the budgeting process too, sort of
Yeah.
saying like,
Yeah.
you know what, we want to put in. five
So,
of type threes and four of each year,
With
you
the
know.
menu and it costs.
And then when the requests come in, we evaluate what
What-
bucket does that fall into.
so when somebody comes to you, Sinan, or calls you up, and says, I want a crosswalk, what would be what would you do, how would you determine if that's out?
That's actually identified under the MUTCD, manual and uniform traffic control
Exactly.
devices. But then crosswalk can be warranted, but what type of crosswalk is not always, so that guideline doesn't have that. Now, you can always come up with that per the money that you want to spend. But it's also, you know, in terms of what's justified, probably more than one type will be justified in each case. And there may be some overlaps between those types. I think for us, more the identifier will be budgets and how much money we've got
Right.
to be able to. So if the money was not an issue, what would we
Go
do?
all out,
And all
right.
that. Yeah.
So how do we provide value?
Well, do you think that this collection of data would help?
Yes, it would be helpful. And then based on that, our policy can define those, for maybe ADT and the pedestrian volume is really helpful, but it's one of those cases that if there's no crosswalk, there won't be any crossings legally. And so how would you come up with that data? So I
That's right.
agree with the proximity to points of interest and destinations and so who would walk up to where and such. Because you may not see physically those pedestrians on the street crossing, but
Right.
they still need to get there. If there was a
Right.
crosswalk, they would be using it. So in the absence of that, ADT is very helpful. Probably directional ADT.
Yeah.
So
Chris, like what I'm seeing here, what I keep going to on your form is the questionnaire. Maybe what we're doing is basically creating a cut sheet for every intersection that we come across. And we're doing that initial legwork for Sinan. And I think you're onto it, the cross streets, the intersecting streets, speed limits, the width.
So-
And if we have that cut sheet for every one of these, that'll start up the conversation. Give them-
Okay, I really like that idea. So you're saying a cut sheet for a minimal crosswalk, another cut sheet for is that what you mean?
No, I kind of think so. If someone comes in here and said, so we just got one tonight.
Okay,
He came in here, it sounds like we put one in, they requested an upgrade. So as TAC, maybe we should be doing is, okay, we're gonna create a crosswalk sheet, or whatever we call it, but a crosswalk sheet for this. We take your questionnaire and it's a
Okay.
cover sheet for that crosswalk. And at the next meeting, somebody here is gonna have to be assigned with gathering that data. And
I think Chris is suggesting that they
they can do it.
you want them to do it.
Well,
Yeah.
what is that data?
I don't know how
Stop
many
crime
people would
crossing,
qualify.
police crossing.
It's the name of the street. They've got that,
Okay,
okay?
yes.
It's the number of
Yeah,
lanes.
I think- Okay.
Yeah, they can fill that
Do
out.
we
Yeah.
want them measuring the street?
Well, they don't have to measure it to the inch. What I'm suggesting is if you know the width, give it to us. You can get it off of, Google Earth.
Okay.
If you want to, or if you know it's 2 lanes and a turn lane, that's all we need.
But I think the value of that form then is at our TAC meetings, when we have a crosswalk identified, everyone is gonna have that sheet for the crosswalk, and pull it up on the satellite.
Right.
And everyone's got the data right in front of them, then
Right.
we can start to have
The
metric,
conversation.
yeah, exactly, based on metrics and data.
Yeah, and then if there are questions, okay, then we ask Public Works or
Yeah.
we ask the police department for additional information about traffic volume or whatever. But an awful lot of it can be resolved right here.
or is it like you say, we rotate, someone comes in, we fill it out.
It could be both, well, I bet you what's gonna happen is people are gonna leave stuff blank and we'll be having to do small. And that's
Fill
fine.
it in.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
and then we have this file of consistently,
So is our to do for
Yeah.
our next meeting
For-
to refine this?
To recreate, yeah,
Make that
and to
sheet?
create the questionnaire.
I think we're moving this
You
forward.
started it right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
Okay, so
So do you want me to carry this to the next step or what's the desire here?
If you don't, if you wanna
I can
collate
help you work on it if you want to.
Okay,
it into a Word document, maybe if you send it up before and I can take it, I glanced at this, I didn't do a deep dive until now.
Okay.
I haven't, but Yeah, maybe
So if
it's a Word document where we can play with.
Susan and Chris work on that and we can present at the next meeting if it's ready.
Okay,
So a few choices that we can make as a community, which perhaps when this comes back to the commission, we can work on those is uncontrolled versus controlled crosswalks. And so controlled crosswalks are those that when the button is hit, vehicles must stop.
yeah,
If they don't stop, they can get a fine. And so we can choose to have all of those that way because like those are RFBs, they're rectangular rapid flashing beacons, those are advisory. Those just bring to the motorist's attention that there's somebody there. It's still kind of
It doesn't
their choice
force them to
whether they
stop.
yield or
Yeah.
not. County, for example, would not allow any uncontrolled crosswalks in their street network. City can make it such a choice. No, we're not gonna
so.
allow any uncontrolled crosswalks.
Sinan, could I come and meet with you and maybe we could put together like a one paragraph to describe each one of these different types of crosswalk?
Sure.
Okay,
So if I might just add one other thing as you're going through this. This document also would be helpful, I think, to staff. If in some way we set a little bit of expectations, right? Right now, people come in here, they want you to take immediate action. And so I think we have to say things like when funding is available. Or if there are options may be dependent on funding availability, just so someone doesn't think, I filled out the form and here it's gonna all of a sudden happen.
where
Because,
is that pot of gold?
Yeah.
well, let me know when you find it.
For an example, just like on Lockwood where all the restaurants are. It depends on the time of day. And I know I've had people come to me and say, can we get crosswalks there? And I say, well, approach the commission, that kind of thing. I mean, that's an unusual, it's not a regular I mean, I think something's necessary there
Which
in the
which
evening.
part of Lockwood?
Well, where all the restaurants are, Olive and Oak,
People keep saying they want one from Allen Cross.
yes.
And it's so close, I don't think you can do that, it's so close to.
The one,
I mean, Gray.
the one at Gray, the one at Gray, there's one at Gray and it's not that good.
No.
It's not really well marked, I don't think, in the light, it does have the lights, but they're the little tiny ones. Look like Christmas lights as opposed to the rectangle, the really flashing ones.
And what I've seen, it's the drivers and the pedestrians. Some pedestrians just walk across to their restaurant.
Right,
How do you rank the crosswalks that come in?
Well, this was
Yes.
describing a risk assessment that talked about harm, the cost.
We gotta be careful. We're not qualified to be doing that.
Yeah,
Well,
And if we-
engineering judgment, crosswalk warrants are done by the following the guidelines and engineering judgment. And so you have to look at site distances and the speeds and yeah, you cannot slap these everywhere.
right.
I think we should stay away from object like ratings.
I mean,
This is what I'm
we're
saying,
just
is
collecting.
folks are gonna put in these requests. And these, what then?
We're
Well, we
compiling,
need-
we're compiling data.
And it goes, and then if it needs, I think we need to circle back to them, either saying it's not warranted, or it's not funded, or it's in the queue.
Yeah.
We do need to circle back
I agree.
to people.
Cause I think,
Well, how do you determine the queues? I mean,
I think we're talking about.
Well, I think part of the budgeting process is basically saying, here are the three types of crosswalks, they cost this amount. In the budget for the year, we're gonna try to do 10 or 5 or 2 or whatever. And I mean, that's determining sort of the capacity.
the sidewalk policy is exactly the same. I read the sidewalk policy and it says we will evaluate based on budget availability and, so there's no promise that. you're gonna-
Our scope is strictly, we're an advisory committee, so we collect the data and then we advise based on that data, but we
can't say.
can't say you gotta do this now. Yeah.
and I'm not sure this document even is a recommendation document as much as it's a collection of information.
Yeah,
Because again, this to me is, they're professional standards that have to be.
But I think
adhered to.
that's the important part is how does the feedback loop?
And how is the safety issue determined? Because sometimes it is a real safety issue and something needs to be done. Whereas, boy, it would be nice if we had one. How do we?
Well, that's part of the professional standards,
Okay.
yeah.
And on the stormwater master plan, for example, we have a scoring or benefit cost ratios that determine the priority of the projects. Benefit scoring though needs to be studied, and so we need to come up with that. And then if somebody wants a very costly solution that reduces the benefit cost ratio, the denominator is high, and then that will not rank as high. We can also make choices such as no mid-block crossings. Crossings have to be at intersections. So
Which
those are,
we don't have, I mean, we do have some mid-block ones.
we do have.
And
The
I
one
think
that he was just talking about in West Kirkland was in the.
that's mid-block, I mean, there's, you know, on Lockwood or Big Bend. That's county, I guess.
Those without proper signs, those are inherently risky.
The one on Kirkham is probably, I always talk about that one by the school board building. It's probably, but that's on the demonstration,
Yeah, that's on the.
that's on the
demonstration.
demonstration project.
It's the stop sign that gets flipped on Sundays.
But there's a crosswalk
We're talking about
there,
the church.
No, yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
By the church, yeah, okay, I know exactly. Yeah, that does get you.
that's scary at night. If you walk to a school board meeting.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think.
But I think we're
moving.
moving, yeah, I think we're moving this for one thing.
There's something important here that we have not talked about. You said you don't like the idea of a risk assessment. The document says there will be a risk assessment.
It's a draft. I mean, I think we can.
Well, it's fine, but you gotta take it out then. You're not gonna do it.
Well, I think we're gonna see the draft at our next meeting. They're gonna tweak it.
But that's fine, but
I'm
it does
gonna
say.
come see you, Chris. We need to tweak this a bit, yeah.
All right, old business, and these first two will be really quick. Elm Place, Eric, I think you,
I sent a survey, have not heard back. Nothing to report.
perfect. And then the parking spot, McDonald's,
It's on the agenda, I believe, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
First and second readings of the ordinance that amends the code for it.
okay, and then the Great Court. I don't know if anyone, I know Jason went by there, I know I did, I don't know if anyone else did. It was the woman who lives on a cul-de-sac, comes out on the Grant Road.
Right.
And
Yes.
she was requesting a crosswalk there. There's no cutouts on the other side, but I definitely, it's interesting, I went up and down Grant, there's like two other instances that are very similar to that one on Grant. But this would be a perfect example of coming in, getting the data, and then I guess having an assessment of whether it can be done or
I'm
not.
just looking at the sightlines and things on that. It's gonna be a very difficult place to put a crosswalk. I think one of our other requests was sidewalks. We would direct her towards city web page for that request, but that is also a difficult issue given the location.
Yeah, the sidewalk I think would be a lot harder.
Yeah.
You know, the crosswalk, again, the sightlines to me were okay if you're driving the speed limit. It's 25 there, right? You know, so I was driving the speed limit. It's like if there was a crosswalk here and proper signage,
See it.
I'd see it. If you're going 40,
That's a
maybe not.
Which is not a crazy speed on that road.
Right.
And I think we're back to the mid-block versus intersection conversation, which I was gonna tell you the way I lean is intersections are far safer than mid-block. And I think that one up to Sanan and his department to assess the sightlines and things like that.
Do you think that's the case because people are just habitualized that people cross it? Is that why you think that's?
I think people see
I agree with you,
that,
by the way.
I think people see that as I'm in a crosswalk, I'm safe, but there has to be, you know, signage and things like that, warnings and so people, I tend, when they approach intersections, I think drive a little more safer versus.
But we also want to see if we could help change the behavior somehow. You know,
Well, I mean, you know, that's a conversation downstream. I don't know if there's, you know, we're talking about, things I know other cities have speed humps and things like that for certain areas, and that's also a route that you can go, not necessarily popping down a crosswalk. We have issues with speed, there's other ways to address.
There's bump outs and I mean, all kinds of different design issues, which are of course cost money.
This
but
is, this, it's kind of unrelated, but one of the top concerns from that survey is for speeding, aggressive and distracted driving. In my experience, one of the biggest contributors to distracted driving and red is cell phones.
Yeah.
Of course.
Do we, I know Illinois has a.
No, Missouri
phone.
became the 49th state.
Oh, do we have it in Missouri?
We do
We
now,
do.
just last
Didn't know
year,
that.
the 49th state. But
My question was gonna be, is there anything we can do to enforce it?
I think it's pretty wide,
I didn't even know that.
right, Eric, that you can't pull someone over for.
It's
talking.
not a first offense, it has to be it's a secondary, so you have to find a different violation to pull them over, you can't just pull them site, that's the way the law is written.
Right. Exactly.
So when you see them.
But it's making a little bit of progress, but, all right, so I think for the time being, before this is, and it might be 6 months before this is all in place, but we start just collecting these, we have 2 now for our list that people have come in with. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
that we need to start collecting those, because eventually we need to circle back either, hey, we think this is warranted, there's no funding, or there's,
so
it's in the queue to be
I
done.
think, I take your point, but is there any official place that that's recorded? So that if this gets approved,
So
we can go back.
Well,
When someone comes forward and makes a request, we say, well, we're working on it. So 3 months from now, let's say we move forward with this. How do we go back and find those people that came forward? I have an Excel sheet with everything that's brought.
well, and they're going to made this application, and right now for the sidewalk policy, that sits with Public Works until funding is available, and then Public Works will get in touch with them and say, we now have money.
Oh, I see.
Here we go.
Okay.
And that's a higher bar, I mean, the sidewalk is 90% of the people that are affected, right, have
Yeah.
to sign a petition.
You gotta
So-
go in their yard.
So in our crosswalk one, we might need to have some sort of, can they be one-off, somebody requesting, I don't know. I mean,
Well,
that's
that's for us to decide.
exactly,
Okay, we're working on graph 2, and then we'll work on the next graph.
you got it.
Quick question, just one more thing. If we tell people more directly how much they cost, because I think we're kind of vague, well, if we have the budgeting. I had no idea until I was on this commission, how much it costs to put a crosswalk in at a different height. So I think it would be fair to
Yeah.
tell them.
You can
This
list
is
that
what
on,
this-
that's a, you
Yeah,
can list that
that's-
on the sheet, the cost of each one.
That's part of setting expectations too, I think, which
Yeah.
is a good idea.
It'd be interesting to
Okay.
also add the cost of a speed bump, because maybe a speed bump actually makes the crosswalk safer inherently without the expense of the lights. If it costs 5,000 for humps and 50,000 for the light system, you could still improve it.
I think if we have a clear idea of the types of crosswalks, paint only, hump, crossing and lights, maybe just those 3,
Yeah.
25,000,
Mhm.
15,000, 10,000 or whatever.
I
I
think
think
that
that'll help us.
the speed humps that I'm familiar with, they're for more residential areas, not main thoroughfares.
Oh, yeah.
Grant Road's a fairly well traveled road.
I mean,
so I
they-
wouldn't think that would be a good placement. You said there are other suggestions, like, cutouts and things like that can be applied.
The expense goes up again.
Yeah, well, that's always the problem. Yeah, money. Well, and someone told me that, one of the things that makes these crosswalks so expensive is the curb cut that you gotta do. If you didn't have to do that, we just slap a little paint on this road and you'd be finished, but. put the
Yeah.
Curb cut in.
Everybody likes the lights and everything. Requires like-
Of course, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna move on. We've got a few more things to cover. The chair, nobody came running forward, but we have one more month for you guys. If anyone wants to be the chair next year, let me know. New business. This first one on here, or we only have one on here, but I wanted to circle back to applying our parking guidelines. So I think we're clear on if somebody comes here and says they want to have, should parking be on one side or two sides, or can we have a shared situation? I think we've all agreed, right? We're just going to use our guidelines as our recommendation going forward. We did have a few weeks ago, somebody came forward with a recommendation for shared parking that already has existing ordinances to reserve it for residents. Do we take those in the same fashion?
I don't know where we stand on that.
So-
because
I can be helpful on that. I did have a conversation with the city manager today that this is still sort of up in the air. She and I talked a little bit about process moving forward, and I think we've decided is she's gonna go ahead and now that, Sanan and Eric and some other members of our staff have had some time to think about what are the resources needed for retroactive implementation. She's gonna put together a memo for council. We're gonna send it out to council and let council ruminate a little bit, and then I will get back to you if it's gonna be rescheduled for an agenda, or if the memo was enough, I'll get back to you one way or another. I expect that to happen by the end of the summer.
Okay.
And so that, but I think the understanding is right, that anything that you get moving forward, certainly the expectation from council would be that you would apply the policy as it's been written. Because the discussion at council was really about resources for going back in time and redoing things. that
Right.
This commission had already approved, actually, so.
And if we can help do some of that legwork. Yeah, we'd like to do that, so. Okay, that's.
Thank you for
good.
that.
Thank you, Mayor. And Jason did throw in one other piece. He asked who's responsible for the upkeep of the bike lanes on Lockwood? His question was that there's a lot of brush and things growing into it now. And is that a city?
Public Works.
Public Works. So he was just pointing it out that, and I don't know if the street sweepers go by there, but I think that because they're not protected bike lanes. And I know I talked to Ron Clip, who's the owner of the hub down here. And he said, we don't really like those because stuff always gets shoved in that lane and then nobody takes care of it.
Push the bicyclists toward.
Yeah.
Closer to.
So I think those lanes get a lot of use. I mean, it's on my walking, but Jason just wanted to know if those are being looked at to be maintained and so forth, so.
We have a good piece of equipment now for that type of, it's a flail mower. It can actually mow vertically along those areas, so we
Okay.
can use that there. And the sweeper has not been out.
Can I
for a
borrow
long
it?
time. So we'll use it together.
Go read your CDL.
Yeah, my neighbors are, that's it. Okay, excellent. Good. With that,
I just have a couple things. We mentioned the comprehensive plan. It sits with the plan commission. They will, I think their meeting is July 7th. They may want one more meeting with it. Either way, I expect council to get it and have a public hearing. Either the well, it depends on what plan commission does, but we're moving along, and I will make sure you all know well in advance of the public hearing in front of council. When that might be, because I know some of you have thoughts on that. I expect, unless the sky falls, that we will pass our budget tomorrow night. And then that will allow me to write back to all the boards and commissions about all the nice things that you all plan for the upcoming fiscal year. And then just a reminder, streets will be closed for the 4th of July parade at 9 a.m. If you're planning to do the new run, that now I guess has been called off. we may have reached the limit of things that people can fit in on the 4th of July. So it's not, or maybe it was just new, so they didn't know about it. But 9 AM is the cutoff. Make sure you're where you need to be. And I will say that
Don't
on
worry,
my
we'll have them lawn chairs out.
no, they're out already. There is one out already. I walked
Oh,
today
that
and
might be right.
there's one,
wow.
I think that is.
there's
That's
one
hilarious.
in front of the Peace Church site.
That's pretty, that's.
There's only one, so I don't know whether it's a joke, whether it's real. I don't know what's
That
going
sounds
on
like a
there.
joke. What was the run on Sunday?
That was part of the Go St. Louis.
It's canceled. You said.
No, the last Sunday,
This
there
was
was,
last-
yesterday, there was a run.
Yeah.
The one of the 4th of July is canceled though.
Excellent. Well, good luck on the budget.
Thank you.
Yes, good luck.
You know, you'll read and I'll write about it, and we are gonna pass a budget that is technically a deficit. I'm pretty confident that by the time we get to the end of the year, that will not be the case, but it's very important that we go ahead and give some increases and some stipends to our staff, so.
Excellent. We still have in our parking lot, the work that Chris did on the Roar delivery spots.
Right.
Has there been any, do you know,
I sent a recommendation. So it's sitting.
sitting there? How do we follow up on that?
I'll follow up.
Okay, and then I guess I fibbed earlier, if July 8th is our next meeting? Do we,
That's what's on the calendar.
Is that Tuesday?
it's a Monday.
Okay.
I scheduled for July 8th. Is that right?
Yeah.
Did I really do that?
I don't know.
May I-
maybe-
may I-
I think I did.
may I just,
Well,
not
it
that
was
I'm
changed
trying
because
to
we're
say,
meeting July 9th.
It was originally.
Not
recorded,
that-
they changed it to. the
not
8th.
that anyone has to follow this, but you're not required to meet every
Agreed.
single month.
Agreed,
You could
since-
take that month off since you have an
I,
event.
I like that idea, given the holidays and.
A holiday, and we also
Yeah.
have the 9th event that I think,
Yes.
and the 8th is a Tuesday anyway,
I
so.
would gladly cancel the preservation of
Okay.
dollar.
So I think we take July off. And our next meeting then would be the 11th of August.
Yeah, I got a little creative with the scheduling. I don't know. I thought it was supposed to be the third week, but. I guess my bad.
Well, wait, well, if maybe we have the yeah, we have the 18th is on my calendar of August.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So let's
Wait a
keep
minute.
that on there.
Yeah, for August. Yeah.
August 18th.
Okay.
Got that, Aaron?
Yep.
All right, anything else, Sanan or Chief?
I noticed that, this shindig on July 9th is the day after the 8th that we're canceling. Do we need to get together that day before or that night before the presentation?
I think our educational subcommittee will call out say, we need you, if we need
We
you.
need people to show up. I mean, really, we're paying Trailer to do them safe. They should be doing. most of the heavy
That, that's what I want to hear.
Exactly.
As long as they're responsible for it, we don't have.
We're doing a quick,
Yeah.
what is TAC at the beginning?
And do we decide who's gonna do?
I'll do that.
Okay.
But again, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's not the purpose.
Just gonna say, let's not be too existential about that.
Are we adjourned?
We're adjourned, yes, thank you.
Thank you.